Well, I'm not sure where to start. The past few weeks have been pretty rough on me. I lost my mother last spring to cancer, and it caused a great deal of grief among my family. However, my father, he took it the worst. He was never the same after Mom's death. He'd look at himself in the house all alone, spacing himself from the rest of the world, spacing himself from even me, his own son. It was odd. Throughout his entire life, he's always been so outgoing and joyful. My mother, my sister, and I were all he had. Now my older sister had grown up and married, moved a few towns over. I guess it was all I had now. Why don't I tell you what happened 2 weeks ago? I'd receive a call, being in front of my monitor for all hours in dead silence. I had been caught slightly off guard by my ringtone. It was Joey Soulsbury or Scarberry or whatever. Ripley's Believe It or Not blaring through my phone's tiny yet powerful speakers. I nearly jumped out of my seat when I grabbed my phone, and then I checked the caller ID. It was a local hospital calling me to... It was a local hospital calling to tell me that my father had killed himself. My sister came down for the funeral, and it was nice to see her again after all these years, even if it was under harsh circumstances. She didn't bring that douchebag of a husband with her either. We shared a few hugs, we talked about the deceased for a while, and then she was on her way. His house and all of his contents were given to me. Needless to say, it was a nice step up from my one-bedroom apartment. I decided I'd go snooping around my new place the following day, maybe clean it up a bit, and honestly do my best to try to forget that a few days ago a guy died in it. I had no clue what I'd find in there. For all I knew, he had lost all sense of modesty in the following of death, and I'd see shit smeared all over the walls or some wrecked furniture. I was at the front door. Upon grabbing the doorknob, I got this instant feeling of dread that came over my body. I froze up. The idea of being in the same room, of the same room that my father hung himself, let alone killed himself, living in the house that he even killed himself in, it didn't really sit well with me. I shook my head and I swallowed my disturbed feelings, and I took a deep breath and prepared myself. I would close my eyes tightly, take in a deep breath, clench my fist, and open the door. The front door led me into a hallway that split into two directions. In front of me was a door leading into the bathroom, and to the right was the living room. Expecting the worst, I turned the corner. My surprise, everything was in pristine condition as I scanned the area. There were a few couches surrounding the ancient-looking television set. My father had never been a tech-savvy guy, so he never really felt the need to update anything. What really caught my eye, though, was a large fireplace near the seating. I didn't remember this. Granted, I've only been in the house a handful of times from what I recall, but this fireplace, it definitely wasn't there. And now, the fireplace wasn't exactly the thing that caught my attention. It was what was mounted above it. A large framed, painted portrait of my mother, surrounded with candles. It was almost like something out of an occult movie. It just seemed a bit off, if you catch what I'm saying. She had a condescending smirk on her face, as if to say, I know something that you don't. Smile was almost like that of the Mona Lisa, unable to tell if it was smirking or anything along those lines. Again, that eerie feeling. I really felt as if I wasn't supposed to be in this house, and being the dumbass I am, I decided to stick around for a little longer, all by myself, as They usually do in these horror films. Venturing into the kitchen, I snooped around the cupboards. They were filled with newish-looking dish sets, and the fridge was filled with nothing but beer and water. Good old dad, I guess. A thought crossed my mind. Should I check out the master bedroom? The room where he hugged himself. I started to have unsure and uneasy feelings. The same ones I had when I was actually entering my house. But nonetheless, I swallowed them down and started heading towards the back of the house. The door to my father's room was slightly open. Knots started to appear in my stomach ever so tight, and I slowly pushed the door slightly open. The hinges let forth an obnoxiously loud creak despite the little effort I pushed into the door. I had no idea why I was being so quiet. I tried to convince myself that I was the only person in the house, but the butterflies on my stomach refused to go away. I kind of felt like a child, as if I had been caught with some sort of treat, or I had some sort of treat in my hand and I was simply sneaking around, hopefully not to get caught. The master bedroom was normal. Everything looked clear. I took a few steps in while scanning the area. There was a nightstand to the right of his bed, his glasses resting atop, seemingly untouched by the test of time. He never liked wearing them. He said they make him look like a sissy boy. To the left of the room was a door. Something that I didn't even know what. Something drew me to that door. I wanted to open it. No, I needed to open this door. Making my way over to the mysterious door, I made sure to be quiet. Again, don't ask me why. I just felt like it'd be disturbing something if I made any noise. I bit my lower lip, placing my hand on a knob. I was trembling in anticipation. I closed my eyes, counted from 3, and I quickly opened the closet. Coats. Lots of coats. Some pants, shoes too, if that's what you're into. It was an ordinary walk-in closet into an old man's casket. Took a sigh in relief. But secretly, I was disappointed. Till I saw it. Something shiny on the floor. Kneeling down, I moved a few shoeboxes out of the way, and then I saw it. It was a brass handle, bolted into the ground. I had noticed a crease in the carpeted floor. It was a small hatch, leading into what I assumed to be a basement or a cellar of some kind. My heart raced. What could be down there? Now, of course, minds of a secret sex dungeon race through my mind, but in reality, it was probably just a wine cellar or something like that. Nonetheless, sex dungeon or not, my lust of adventure got the better of me, and without thinking, I grabbed that brass handle, flung the hatch open, and peered inside. It was dark. Oh, so very dark. All my instincts went against what I was about to do, but I completely ignored them. Jumped down. Luckily, it wasn't high of a drop, and I'd be able to pull myself out if need be. The basement was dark and extremely dusty. Fishing into my pocket, I pulled out my Zippo lighter, and it took me a few tries, but I gotta manage steady flame to light up the small proportion room. And then I saw it. I know I've been saying that a lot, but I saw it. It was the last thing I'd even expect out of the old geezer. Sitting at the edge of the room was a small desk, keyboard and mouse and monitor. One of those white plastic chairs was pushed into the desk. Furiously, I walked over to the station. If to do nothing more than, well, delete the history out of my dad's computer sex dungeon thing. The computer looked new, as if it had never been used, which was a good sign, as I was a little kind of scared about what I was going to find on it. This couldn't be my father's. Why could I have a nice rig like this just sitting in the basement? I pulled the flimsy chair that, well, was now mine from the desk, and took a seat in front of the monitor. crossed my fingers, leaned over, and tried booting up the new computer. And eureka! It worked! The Windows 7 boot logo appeared on the screen. Again, it strikes me as odd, as my father isn't a tech-savvy, well, in his words, geek. He wouldn't own such a nice, expensive-looking computer. It required me to select a user, and there was only one, which caught my attention. I'm gonna be honest here. The giant words reading disappointment caught me off edge. A chill went down my spine. Disappointment? Why would he name his profile that? I'm pretty sure that my dad isn't like a internet troll or something like that. So why in Sam fuck would he name that? I clicked it. It asked for me to give it a password, and I grinned and I typed Shireen, which was my mother's maiden name. I'll be damned. It worked. I cocked my head to the side. Something seemed to be wrong. The desktop background was a solid black. There was no start bar, and there's only one icon in the middle of the screen. The middle of the screen was a single executable aisle that was labeled Choke.exe. No, I'm not gonna lie, my hands trembled at this point. I had no idea what in the fuck I was doing here, Nonetheless, I wanted to turn around and go back to the comfort of my apartment. But curiosity wouldn't let me. I couldn't control myself, almost as if it was against my will. I hovered my cursor over the icon, and I double-clicked. The screen flickered, and I figured that there was gonna be something wrong with the cord. Impossible. There's nothing wrong. I reached my hand behind the computer and I checked the wires, but the screen was flickering anyway. It seemed to be as if everything was right, but I never really tell what was going on. The computer emitted a high-pitched buzz after I got done checking it, as if it was working itself too hard. Shades of blue and red and green flashed on and off on the monitor. The computer's whining became louder and louder, sputtering to life with intensity every second. All of a sudden, everything became quiet again, and I looked at the screen. There was a red dot, very distinct red dot in the middle, with some small text in all caps, reading, "Disappointment." Heart was pounding in my chest. Everything had come to a standstill. I relaxed for what seemed like a few seconds until I heard it. Sound of heavy breathing and footsteps behind me coming closer and closer. I didn't dare look or shift my gaze from my computer's monitor. I'm not fucking around anymore. The footsteps stopped. Whoever or whatever was behind me had leaned over. Their mouth was right next to my ear. I heard a familiar voice whisper, "Choke." With great force, a rope had been wrapped around my neck, and I screamed as loud as I could. The rope had been tightened and had been yanked backwards on my chair. I couldn't breathe. My neck was sore. My vision was slowly starting to fade away due to the lack of oxygen. I thought I was gonna die. I gagged and clogged at my neck. Nothing there. There's fucking nothing there. I was on my hands and knees gasping for air. My vision had barely returned until I stood up and staggered around. I was trying to regain my bearings. I was in the living room, right in front of the fireplace. It raised in vision as if it adjusted itself. I saw the portrait of my mother giving me a condescending smirk. This leads me to present day. I'm sitting here in my dingy one-bedroom apartment. I can honestly say there's no fucking place like home. I had no idea what the hell happened. And honestly, I don't know how to know. All I'm sure is that I'm never setting foot that house again. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, That Creepy Reading, and goddamn, it's been a while since I narrated. Welp, I'm here now, so why don't we begin with the review? Choke.exe, by God, is a refreshingly different creepypasta. The name is suggesting a cliche title, and here I am sitting here with my good friend from Tat-Stop Videos, half expecting some sort of, I don't know, cliched story. But here I am, reading it and finding that it is surprisingly refreshing, breathing new life into the .exe genre. Yes, there was genuine build-up. I enjoyed the build-up. Now, I will say that the very beginning part was a little bit too fast, and the story seems to be moving at a pace that seemed to be very odd. And although not much happened during it, I can say that the writer did make something genuinely enjoyable. Full disclosure, I did change a few of the writing, as the sex dungeon part was all ad-libbed by myself. But in general, this story is fucking fantastic. There's nothing more enjoyable than to read a story that is not cliched to hell. The dad died, he goes into his house, finds a neat-looking odd computer, and finds himself choking because of it. I don't know why, but it does suggest that his dad may have died due to him messing with something. The occult-style picture of his mother seems to suggest that maybe he tried to bring his distraught late wife back to life, and possibly could have used the computer to, you know, do it. I'd highly recommend to the author of this, someone who is going by the name of Dry MD, I believe, that he decides to go back to the story and add more stuff to the Choke.exe file. I would really like to learn more about what the father was doing. I'd want to know or get some information about what's going on. Now, I'm not saying give me too much information by explaining it in great detail, but I'd love for some more suggestive imagery. I would love for more dark imagery. As for this creepypasta, it doesn't really have anything new in it. It's just a creepypasta, so to speak. And although I do love it, I absolutely love the idea, and I absolutely love the writing, which was originally gonna be a crappypasta because of the name. I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised. For those of you who are still watching this video at this time, I'd like to let you know that I have hit 50,000 subscribers, and as soon as I say that, I lose 10,000. Anyway, I would like you guys to join me this Saturday as me and several friends read The Adventures of Sonichu. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a little-known YouTuber, or person really, he's not really a YouTuber, called Chris-chan, and his recent exploits, and his comic book, and oh god, it's going to be a jolly barrel of fun. If you guys want to join me, please feel free. It should be at Saturday, 10 p.m., 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it'll probably be going on for several hours as we make the fun of the Sonichu. Thanks for watching my review, thank you for reading creepypastas, and yours truly, as always, that creepy reading. Have fun!